Welcome to another episode of Shop Happenings. Today in the shop, we're going to take a look at what we're doing with our toys. I'm going to start first with a little Grizzly milling machine over here. Today we're working on setting up a work stop over here so that we can drill some holes in the end of this piece of sheet metal. And this piece of sheet metal will ultimately be bent up to become the axle for our truck. We'll see a little more of that a little later on. So let's go take a walk. So we walk throughout our shop. We're going to find a new piece over here. We're going to find our buckets. So here's one of our buckets that we have welded up, and it's being cleaned up. It'll have to be post-processed. Notice that we've already drilled some holes. We drilled a hole here, and we're starting a hole here. My students are struggling with the fact that you have to hold material so that it doesn't spin when you drill. So as you can see here, a little bit of an issue there. They're also working on the bracketry. These brackets will be pop riveted to the back of the bucket. Once they're pop riveted to the back of the bucket, the arms for the skid steer will go on the bucket. So that's where we are with that. If we come around to the other side of the workbench here, we will find a whole bunch of our stake racks that have been put together for our stake rack pickup. And as you can see, we've laser engraved our CCHS, or Candor Central High School, 21-22 school year, and that's going to be the model of our truck and skid steer. As we go over to another bench, we'll find that one of our trucks is starting to be put together. As you can see, the engine's on to our frame. This is rough fitted. Our cab is rough fitted to the frame, and as you can see, the stakes have been put on the stake rack, so these can be removed and reinserted. So far so good on this. This is our first one. We're making 21. This is our first one, and it's starting to take shape. As we continue around this bench, we're going to find a small pile of wood here, our motors, and one of our sub-assemblies over here that students are working on. This happens to be the truck frame and the truck engine before we put on the stake rack and the cab. If we go to another bench, we're going to find our skid steer frame and skid steer motor. So here's our skid steer motor attached to our skid steer frame. Eventually, if we look past our bucket of screws here, we're going to find a cab. And our cab is going to sit on our skid steer frame here. And that's what we're going to end up with for our skid steer. There's some counterweights, which I'll show you now at another machine. So this student, in another part of our shop, is currently sanding up the parts that he made. And you can see these being made in another video on one of our donated TRAK CNC milling machines, which we're going to head over to now to see another part. So as we walk over here, here is one of our TRAK K3 knee mills with our Proto TRAK KMX controller. And as I scroll around here a little bit, we'll see we have this set up with a drill bit in it, and we're drilling two holes in this piece of wood here. And these two holes are going to be used for fixturing as well as mounting the arm of our skid steer onto our skid steer. And to see where that's happening, if we wander over here to this work cart, we will find a really cool fixture here made out of a 2x4 with the exact same holes drilled in it, which allow for this to be machined. So this is our rough cutout of our arm. We did run into a problem with our arm in the first few iterations. We keep chipping off this back corner where my thumb is. You'll see this one's also chipped where my index finger is. We've edited our program so that we don't cut this curve, because as we cut that curve, no matter which direction we go, we chip this out. So we're going to post-process this with a bandsaw and then sand our little arc on. Before it gets to that stage, it goes through this stage, we're going to rough this out with a bandsaw. We've found that by cutting this repeatedly with our milling machine, it takes a long time. We can cut this real quick with a bandsaw, cut off a corner, and make this rough shape so that it can be machined here. And that goes into our donated OKK VM4 CNC milling machine with our FANUC control. This is an up-close tour of our skid steer truck and trailer. So as you can see this year, we've made our cab out of sheet metal. We spot welded the top in, and we need to prime and paint these, but right now these are done. They're going to go home. If students want to prime and paint, they can. We'd like to stain them up too, but we're out of time. So this is a real quick tour of what we had done. So here you can see we have some black walnut and maple for our engine. This is our frame. The frame goes all the way underneath the truck. Our bed is here. This is a stake rack bed. So as you can see, the stakes come off. We actually laser engraved our school initials in there as well as the year. So that's kind of our make and model. As you can see, our stake rack is also made of, in this case, hemlock, maple, as well as black walnut. Give us a little contrast to our toy, as you can see here. These are just placed into the machine with 5/16 holes. We have 1/4-inch dowels. Our stakes are 3/4 by 3/4. It's just a convenient size to work with for us. To continue the tour of our truck, if I spin this around a little bit and we look underneath, I'm going to kind of flip this whole thing over. You can see that our axles were made out of sheet metal. We offset the screws so that we get a little better structure of our truck. You can see our wheels right here were made with our Milltronics VM4. We used a counter bore here. It's a 5/16 hole. It goes all the way through for a 1/4 20 bolt, and we put a washer to retain. Kind of gives it look like a little hubcap look, if you will. You can see we have a lock nut down here to hold that wheel on. If I scroll down the back of the truck, we see our trailer hitch. Our trailer hitch, as you can see, holds our trailer in place. Again, we used a 1/4 20 bolt there. Our screws in the back, they just screw in the back. They're just a round head wood screw that we drilled in. The brackets, so the truck hitch and the trailer hitch, as well as the parts for the cab. So the cab, not the roof of the cab, but the side of the cab, and our fenders for our trailer were all cut on our CNC plasma cutter. That was a project that students took quite a while to do. They're a little finicky, a plasma cutter, but they came out all right. I'm pretty excited how it came out. One small flaw in our design, if I spin around, we used the holes for the wheels to go directly through the holes for the fenders. And to get our fenders so they don't wobble, because they're all the same hole, we had to tighten our wheels up so now our wheels don't spin. But if we loosen up our wheels so our wheels spin, then our fenders get really wobbly. So it's kind of, this one's really wobbly and those wheels actually spin on that side. This fender's not wobbly, so it looks nice, but then our wheels don't spin. So it's kind of a toy that's really made to sit and look at. But our trailer is really simple. It's just a frame. Our fenders are the most complicated part. That was quite a bending experience for a young person. He did a great job on these. Because of the rigidity of our sheet metal, we didn't have to spot weld or weld these, so I really like the way they turned out. To continue our tour, here's our skid steer. I'm going to pull this off the trailer, so we'll back this down. We didn't make ramps. We felt that was going to be a little too much. What we did here is these were cut on our TRAK K3 CNC milling machine. They're glued and air nailed on with 2 small brad nails. They're really hard to see. If you stand back, you can't even notice them. Zooming in, we can definitely see those. They're made out of maple. We made our wheels on our Milltronics VM4 CNC mill. They were jigged up and fixtured up. I'm hoping that's in a video that we did. Our arms were made on our OKK VM4. Those were created with a jig, and I think I showed that in another video. This little bracket is made out of aluminum, made with our TRAK K3 CNC mills. We had all 3 of those going at once for these. These were very complicated. There's actually a countersink screw. I doubt you'll be able to see it. Maybe you can. There's a little countersink screw in there. That came out really nice. If I zoom in on our bucket, here's our bucket. Again, that's sheet metal. We actually spot welded and then used a MIG welder to kind of finish those up in here. This came out actually pretty good. Again, it needs to be primed and painted, but it is ready to go. Our cab was made with our OKK VM4. We fixtured it up in 3 different places. So you can see, get our arms out of the way, so you can see our side windows, front window, other side window. So these came out real nice. And then lastly, if I spin around our motor, again, this is oak and cherry. You can see our cooling fins back here. They came out real nice. Those were done with a 1/4-inch ball end mill, really quick on a CNC machine. It was our OKK VM4.